So, hallo erstmal, ich bin schon lange mit Jonathan befreundet und erfreue mich auch Jahr für Jahr weiter daran, mit ihm befreundet zu sein und muss sagen, dass darüber, dass er mir viel näher gebracht hat über verschiedene Philosophen, ich viel lernen konnte und das auch mit großer Freude machen konnte und mich selber auch über die Jahre verändert habe, muss ich sagen. Ich habe durch viele Treffen, die ich mit ihm hatte, wo wir einfach uns unterhalten haben, viel mehr ganz andere Blickwinkel für mich öffnen können und mich für mein Leben auch anders verhalten und anders handeln können und habe, glaube ich, viele Vorteile davon gehabt, mit Jonathan befreundet zu sein und auch ihm zuzuhören und auch mit ihm zu diskutieren über verschiedene Dinge. Daran bin ich gewachsen und gereift auch und ich kann eigentlich nur anderen wünschen, dass sie die Erfahrung auch machen konnten.
Ich kenne Jonathan schon längere Zeit und er ist einer der ganz besonderen und außergewöhnlichen Menschen, die man so im Leben trifft. Nicht nur, weil er so unglaublich belesen ist auf dem Gebiete der Philosophie wie kaum ein zweiter. Er weiß wirklich Bescheid und man kann ihm bestimmt jede beliebige Frage stellen dazu, sondern weil er das, was er sagt, er meint es so, er fühlt es, er handelt danach, er lebt es einfach. Wenn man ihm begegnet, strahlt er diese Wahrhaftigkeit aus. Und man hört von ihm keine leeren Phrasen nach dem Motto, ja, man müsste doch eigentlich, vielleicht sollte man mehr, aber so wichtig ist es eigentlich doch auch nicht, sondern zack, es kommt einfach, ja, es schlägt ein, was er sagt. Und ich empfinde die Bekanntschaft mit ihm als sehr bereichernd, weil er klug ist, weil er, ja, überlegt ist und weil er das Ganze auch noch wahnsinnig unterhaltsam rüberbringen kann. Ihr werdet hier also keine trockenen, langweiligen Lehrvideos finden, sondern ihr werdet etwas finden, was euch in eurem Leben wirklich nützt und weiterbringt und hilft. Ja, ich unterhalte mich unheimlich gern mit ihm. Ich freue mich, dass er der Vernunft jetzt auch eine Stimme verleiht auf YouTube. Es wurde auch mal Zeit. Und ich werde den Kanal sicher abonnieren. Einerseits, weil ich von den Gesprächen mit ihm ganz viel mitnehme, was mir im Leben weiterhilft und was mich zum Nachdenken bringt und was mir auch hilft, die Dinge vielleicht mal in einem anderen Licht zu betrachten als bisher. Und zum anderen, weil ich finde, dass es kaum jemand so unterhaltsam und kurzweilig rüberbringen kann wie er. Ich könnte Jonathan wirklich stundenlang zuhören. Ja, und freue mich auf alles, was hier kommen mag. Ich wünsche dir viel Erfolg dabei.
Seit 5 Jahren treffe ich mich mit Jonathan und weiteren Freunden, um über die Philosophie und über die Aufklärung zu lernen. Und in den ersten Mal war ich dabei, jedoch bin ich dann nach einer Zeit nicht mehr hingegangen, weil mich das alles nicht so wirklich interessiert hat. Und nachdem ich ein paar Stunden frei hatte, habe ich gesagt, okay, ich schaue mir das wieder an. Und das war der Punkt, und wo ich auch darüber sehr froh bin, nämlich, dass ich da hingegangen bin, denn ich habe gemerkt, dass ich bei Jonathan unglaublich viel gelernt habe. Und das, was ich bei Jonathan bisher gelernt habe, dass es halt nicht nur auf bestimmte Situationen gilt, sondern dass ich das für mein ganzes Leben benutzen kann. Ein Beispiel wäre beispielsweise das mit der Zeit. Ich habe bei Jonathan gelernt, dass es eine Lüge ist, wenn ich sage, dass ich keine Zeit habe, denn ich sollte mir die Zeit für etwas nehmen. Und das habe ich bisher angewendet. Ich habe beispielsweise früher immer gesagt, ja, ich habe keine Zeit für dich, ich muss für die Schule lernen, obwohl ich auch immer schlechte Noten bekommen habe. Und seitdem ich aber jedoch dieses Verständnis dafür habe, dass ich mir die Zeit für etwas nehme, dadurch fühle ich mich unglaublich gut. Denn ich nehme mir die Zeit für etwas anderes, beispielsweise für die Zeit mit meinem Cousin, und danach kommt die Uni. Und dadurch habe ich mich total immer gut gefühlt, für die Uni zu machen. Und das ist nur eine Sache von vielen, die ich bisher bei Jonathan gelernt habe. Er lernt unglaublich viel über Nietzsche, über Fichte und über deren Ansichten. Und das ist, also deswegen kann ich euch das nur wärmstens empfehlen. Nehmt euch auch die Zeit hierfür, seine Videos anzuschauen. Und dabei wünsche ich euch nur viel Spaß.
Hallo liebe Leute, guten Tag. Ich bin Eva Strobel, ich bin Nietzsche-Forscherin. Ich habe Jonathan Ivo Löwer kennengelernt. Ich fühle mich sehr bereichert mit dem, was er mir gesagt hat, auch über Nietzsche. Am meisten begeistert mich, was er mir über Aufklärung gesagt hat. Nebenbei bemerkt, ich halte Nietzsche für einen Aufklärer der Aufklärung. Er hat ganz an der Basis angesetzt. Ihm geht es um die Vertiefung des Menschlichen, um die Vertiefung unseres Verständnisses des Menschen. Wer sind wir? Wohin wollen wir? Was möchten wir? Wir sind Täter, nicht Opfer. Wir sind Gestalter unseres Lebens. Am meisten gefällt mir, wie toll er seine Einsichten formulieren kann, wie behutsam, wie fein und wie solide. Ich habe gerade eben seine Bachelorarbeit gelesen. Diese Bachelorarbeit spricht, was kann Aufklärung heute sein. Ganz solide beginnt er mit Kant und Fichte und deren Verständnis von Aufklärung. Sie können uns heute eine Anregung, eine Richtschnur geben, was heißt gutes Verhalten, was möchten wir, was erwarten wir von uns selbst. Wenn wir denken, was finden wir dann? Finden wir unser Ja zu unserem Leben, zu diesem Leben hier? Was finden wir? Er kann alles so schön beleuchten und durchleuchten. Und er ist auch sehr, sehr witzig. Er kann schön lachen und er fördert mit der alten Sprache dieser Autoren, die er sehr, sehr, sehr gut kennt, Dinge, die ich jetzt sehr interessant finde. Auch für diese Leute, die jetzt Fridays for Future veranstalten und ihre Eltern und Großeltern und vielleicht sogar Urgroßeltern, die findet man jetzt ja auch dabei. Ich finde ihn eine große Bereicherung meines Lebens. Ich höre ihm gerne zu. Ich werde diesen Kanal lesen, studieren. Ich werde ihn abonnieren und werde mich sehr von ihm bereichert fühlen. Sicherlich werde ich auch immer mal wieder nachfragen und er wird mir manches erklären können mit praktischen Beispielen, sehr anschaulich aus seinem Leben und seinen Erfahrungen mit seinen Studis. Er unterrichtet nämlich seit seiner eigenen Schulzeit. Schüler, die sind mittlerweile auch Studenten, Studierende, Studentinnen, richtig groß und haben richtig tolle, viele Ideen. Auf jeden Fall, wie ihr wisst, er ist Philosoph, er ist Aufklärer, er ist Dichter, vielleicht auch Lebenskünstler. Ihr werdet es hören, auf jeden Fall. Ich wünsche euch viel Freude, Spaß und ein schönes Lachen mit Jonathan Ivo Löwer.
Hallöchen, wie man vor 10 Jahren in Berlin gesagt hätte. Ich heiße Henrik Löwer, bin der Vater von Jonathan Ivo Löwer, der hier die Stimme der Vernunft im Internet platzieren möchte. Dafür wünsche ich ihm alles Gute, habe volles Zutrauen, dass er das wunderbar hinbekommt, denn er ist ein willensstarkes und willenstreues und willensklares Bürschchen. Ach, Bürschchen hätte ich jetzt nicht sagen dürfen.
Darfst du sagen?
Nein, er ist ja schon 25 Jahre alt. Er ist ein junger Mann. Na, da hast du aber zu schnippeln am Schluss. Ja. Nun soll ich, arme Sau, mal zu Jonathan Ivo Löwer sagen. Außer dass er mein Sohn ist. Ein wunderbarer Sohn, der mich immer wieder aufs Neue überrascht hat, vom ersten Tag nach der Geburt. Besonders seine Willensklarheit, unbeirrbare Willensklarheit, die schon da war, bevor er überhaupt sprechen konnte. Seine großartige Selbsttreue, die vom ersten Atemzug da war. Ja. dass wenn jemand irgend an positiver Aufklärung nur entfernt interessiert ist, so denke ich, sollte er sich mit Jonathan beschäftigen und dem, was Jonathan zu schreiben oder zu erzählen hat, folgen, das auf sich wirken lassen, in Ruhe. Ich wünsche euch viele wunderbare Denkanregungen durch die Filme, die er hier hochstellt. Und ansonsten ein schönes Leben mit ausreichend Lachen. Tschüss.
Germany is, according to an old saying, supposed to be the land of poets and thinkers. But when I look around in this nation of mine, and also in others for that matter, I wonder where the poeting and thinking is being done. There is, to be sure, a lot of writing, and even more opining, but poeting and thinking, that ought to be something else. I am Ivo Löwer. I am poet and thinker. And my aim is nothing less than to lift up again the spirit and philosophy which once, especially here in my country of Germany, had reached the highest heights, but which have since been abandoned. From this, the question arises why someone should pay attention to what I'm doing, to my writing, to my lectures, to what I'm trying to do. This is a question that ought to be asked because here in Germany alone there are about 70,000 books being published each year. That's just the books in Germany, so there will be many, many more in other countries. And that's just the books of one single year, so that's not counting all the books that already have been published ever since humans have written books. And likewise, here on YouTube, over 500 hours of video content is uploaded every single minute. And once again, those are just the videos on YouTube, so that's not counting other platforms. And those are just the videos of one single minute. So what that means is that even with a very, very long life, and even with little else to do besides reading or watching videos, you can't even read or watch 1% of 1% of everything that you could potentially read or watch. And that means humans have to choose. Which leads to the question, why should your choice of what you read, of what you listen to, why should your choice fall on me? Well, maybe for one, because I, unlike others, ask this very question. So, because I don't take freedom of speech to be an invitation to just throw out every brain fart that I may have into the wider world, but rather I understand it to be a high responsibility. Rather, I am of the conviction that he who dares to go into the public and to speak publicly, to say something to other people who didn't ask for this, that this person should actually have something to say. So, in other words, I believe that speaking publicly is something that needs to be justified. Well, what then is my justification for doing so? It is actually fourfold. Nowadays, there are a lot of opinions being spoken publicly. In fact, no matter what someone's opinion may be, he may be on the left, he may be on the right, he may be an atheist, he may belong to this or that cult, even if he may have a more outlandish opinion, if he may have a certain conspiracy theory, for example, which he subscribes to. No matter what, that person can be almost sure to find others out there who hold the same opinion. And that person can be almost sure that this opinion has already been spoken. In videos, on blogs, in books. All these various opinions have already been expressed. Now, do I hold myself to be smarter than all those people who hold and express various opinions? The answer is no. I may be smarter than some, but some may be smarter than me. But to be quite frank, I don't think that being smart is really what matters here. All the arguments have already been laid out. Anyone who follows a public debate on pretty much any topic for a certain amount of time will probably sooner or later be fed up with that debate. Because the same arguments, or pseudo-arguments in many cases, are repeated again and again. You just have to look into the comments section under a video or an article or whatever, and you will often find the very same arguments that you already read 1,000 times before, including many arguments that have long ago been refuted already. For that reason, to be frank, I don't quite get why anyone would want to join this circus of opinions. Why anyone would want to, for example, start a blog and try to talk about this or that topic and to win people over to his side. Even if I was of the same opinion as the person writing that blog, even if I agreed with the content, I would still not quite get why anyone would do that work. Because whatever you have to say, you can be pretty sure it has already been said. To be sure, someone new who comes along might be able to be a bit more on point when expressing a certain argument. Or he might be able to give a new example to better illustrate that argument. But all in all, a newcomer to any given debate will probably not have to add much new to that debate. And it usually isn't about the best argument anyways. In any given debate, both sides will probably tend to mostly speak with themselves. So when one side gives a certain argument, no matter if it's good or bad, the opposing side will probably more or less ignore it. While the people of that same side, the people who agree with the person arguing, will probably applaud that argument, not because it's right, but because they are happy and feel validated that someone is saying exactly what they always held to be true anyways. Well, I have no intention to be part of that circus of opinions. Even with the reasons I just talked about aside, I simply find it ignoble and base to share your private opinions that nobody asked you about with the public, as if they were of any importance. This might be a first reason to listen to me. I don't want to partake in party squabbles, in small daily politics. I want to be above partisan and ideological issues. And therefore, no one should have to wipe me off right away simply because I belong to the wrong side. Simply because I don't align with his ideology. Rather, people of all sides, of all parties, should be able to find what I have to say of interest. And this is a negative reason why one should listen to me. I am aware, however, that despite this, people will still manage to stick a label on me. And that people will still believe I belong to this or that side and therefore I'm on the wrong side, I'm the opponent. That will probably happen pretty soon. That already has happened before a number of times in my life. What's interesting, however, is that over the years I have, by different people and at different times, I have been put in very different and very opposing boxes. So I have been accused before of being naive, woke person. But on the other hand, I have also been accused of being a terribly racist and sexist conservative. I have been accused by people to be a cold, only rational, materialistic atheist who has no feeling and no sense for deeper spirituality. But I've also been accused of being some esoteric nutcase who disregards science. In fact, I once had someone tell me, with the way I talk about science, with how much I seemingly despise science, I should be banished from civilization because I should not get to benefit from science and from scientific discoveries. And I will openly admit that this confirms me. If it was the case that each and every time one side would applaud me while the other side would attack me, that would get me thinking. That would make me doubt myself. But as long as various sides and opposing sides both equally attack me, I get the sense that I must be onto something. But be that as it may, as I said before, so far I have only given a negative reason why one should listen to me. It's more of a reason why one should not listen to me than really a reason why one should listen to me. But with this negative reason, a positive one is connected. Because if I don't want to talk about my opinions here, I may hold certain opinions privately, but I don't plan on spreading those around. Then what do I want to talk about and spread here? Well, I said earlier that I don't hold myself to be smarter than others. I am, however, and I take care to say not I hold myself to be, but I am wiser than others. I am the voice of reason. And as a philosopher, I don't want to talk about my opinions. I want to talk about truth. Now, I'm very much aware that this statement will make certain people not want to listen to me, but rather want to leave. I'm very aware that certain people will now write me off, saying, oh, this guy is clearly full of himself. This guy is clearly arrogant, thinking his opinion is the truth, calling himself the voice of reason. Who does he think he is? And he's so young too, on top of that. Well, as far as those people are concerned, I won't try to hold them back. In fact, I would be quite pleased if I managed to drive them off so soon and so easily. But for the others, I want to explain what I mean when I call myself the voice of reason. And I want to show you that it's not such a big deal after all. Anyone can be the voice of reason. And anyone probably is the voice of reason, at least sometimes. Because as humans, we are rational beings. And if you say that 1 + 1 equals 2, then you are not stating your particular opinion, but rather you are stating the truth according to a law of reason. And you are simply being the voice of reason. Well, and now imagine there was another equation. One that was slightly more difficult than 1 + 1. Difficult enough that it couldn't be solved by just glancing at it, but rather you would actually have to calculate. And now imagine that a bunch of people would release videos on that equation, here on YouTube, for example. And that in those videos, they would give their opinions. What might be the solution to that equation? And by that, I'm not saying that they wouldn't provide any arguments. Maybe they would give arguments in support of their opinions. Maybe even very complicated and complex arguments. But the problem with this would be that the arguments too would be based simply on opinion. So one person would say the result is clearly 5,873.561. And the next person would say, no, it's obviously -2. And maybe someone would argue, well, the last 6 times I solved an equation, the solution was always 3. So therefore, clearly it must be 3 again in this case. And the next person would maybe argue, well, in this equation we have to multiply with a prime number, so therefore I am sure that the result must also be a prime number. And so on and so on. I ask you, would you waste your time with those videos? If you ask me, anyone listening to someone else's opinion, giving any weight to someone else's opinion, doesn't just throw his time away, he throws himself away. It is degrading to listen to someone's opinion. Because all people are equal. And if it's only about opinions, well, I too can hold opinions. Why would they be any worse than anyone else's opinions? So if I put someone else's opinions above mine, if I give them more value than mine, I am disregarding myself. Well, but now consider there was another video. There was somebody else who would say, I don't want to talk about my opinion here. I want to talk about truth. I want to tell you not what my guess is concerning this equation, but I want to tell you the actual solution to this equation. according to a law of reason. I may also, because I also am a human being, I also am a person, I may also hold opinions on this or that matter, but at least here, in this video, I want to put my opinions aside. And at least here in this video, I don't want to talk to you as this particular person, with this name, with this background, with these desires, with these prejudices. But rather, I want to leave all of that, my laziness and my cowardice, behind, and I want, in this video, to talk to you simply as the voice of reason. And I don't want to just give you the solution to the equation either, but rather I want to calculate it here in front of you. I want to show you how it is done and how I arrived at that conclusion, in order that you yourself can understand that this is indeed the true solution to this equation. In order that you can calculate it yourself and prove it for yourself, according to the same law of reason which I am following. And also in order that, in the case that I am wrong, and I might be, because to be sure I am also a finite human being, I am not perfect, I am not all-knowing, but in the case that I am wrong, I want you to be able to pick up where I made a mistake, and I want you to be able to do it better than I did and to correct me. Because, to be clear here, I don't want to be right or to look like I'm right. I want the truth. So, if it should happen that I don't have the truth after all, if it should happen that I miscalculated and I arrived at the wrong solution, I would be happy about someone telling me, because I don't want to walk around with the wrong solution and thinking that it is right. I want to walk around with the truth. And that to me is more important than my self-image, than being right. So I wouldn't mind being proven wrong if I am wrong. Now I ask you, wouldn't you rather watch this video if you were interested in this mathematical equation? And I also ask you, would this person be arrogant, or wouldn't be the others the arrogant ones who spread their unqualified and unproven opinions and just presume that the world cares about and has to hear their opinions? When I call myself the voice of reason, I don't claim to have a deeper understanding simply by nature, that I was simply born this way. Rather, I believe that all humans are rational beings, that all humans have the capacity to be rational, to be the voice of reason. But no one is just simply born reasonable. We have to first cultivate ourselves. We have to first learn. We have to first work on ourselves. Have to free ourselves from being led by others, from certain guardians and authority figures, from our own prejudices and desires, from our own laziness and cowardice. And once we have freed ourselves from this, we have to learn to use and apply reason. And to, by this reason, lead and guide ourselves. This process is called Aufklärung, or in English, enlightenment, which, however, I don't find to be a very good translation and therefore won't use. And there once was a time, the 18th century, the age of Aufklärung, where certain people, the Aufklärers, worked on exactly that process, where they worked on aufkläring themselves, and where they also worked on aufkläring others, because they recognized Aufklärung to be humanity's vocation. Their path, however, wasn't gone all the way till the end. It has instead been abandoned. Now, some people actually look back and claim that this path was the wrong path to begin with. Well, with those people, I can't really talk and argue. Because if you honestly believe that thinking for yourself and being rational is the wrong way, then it necessarily follows that you must not think for yourself and that you must be irrational. And such a person can't be talked to. You can't really use rational arguments to convince a person who just told you that he will disregard reason and that he puts no value into rationality. But there is a larger number of people who may not hold the opinion that the project of Aufklärung was wrong altogether. In fact, they might think it was a good thing and a very important development to which we are very much indebted. But they believe that it is done and finished, and that no more Aufklärung has to be done, which I might add is quite typical for unaufklärt people. They like to say, they like to think that they are complete already, and they like to shy away from work because the basis of all unaufklärtness is, after all, laziness. But forgive me if I disagree with those people. If I believe that we are not yet aufklärt, that we are in fact still very far away from this, and that Aufklärung still largely is a task ahead of us and not behind us. I am an Aufklärer. I want to help people to learn to think. And as I stated before, I believe all human beings to be rational beings. I believe everyone has reason within himself and talking to him. But this inner reason is speaking with a very quiet voice. It is easy to not listen to it. And in fact, in today's world, with how children are raised today, we are actually taught to not listen to this inner voice of reason and to close our ears to it. And for that reason, it is necessary that if someone does listen to their inner reason, they also speak out loudly what reason has to say. Because this voice of another human being is a little easier to hear than this quiet voice of reason inside of us. So when I speak up and when I say what reason tells me, that gives others a chance to listen to it and to hold it against their inner voice of reason and to compare it with what reason inside them is saying, and to thereby learn to better listen to this inner voice of reason to the point where they won't need this outer voice of reason, this other human being speaking reason anymore. And also, when holding what the outer voice of reason says, what this other human being says, against the reason they carry inside of them, they should be able to examine it and to judge it and to, by this comparison, see if it really is reasonable what this other person is saying. Because, to make this clear, I don't want people to say, oh, this guy is clearly a great sage, we should blindly listen to him. I don't want people to just swallow up what I say uncritically. Rather, I want them to closely examine it, to think about whether it really is true and reasonable or not. I want them to start using their own reason and to judge what I have to say by their own reason. Because reason is the only thing in the world by which we can measure reason. But, to be clear, I also want nothing else but to be judged by reason. What I don't want, even though I know it will also happen a lot, what I don't want is people judging what I have to say by holding it against and comparing it with their prejudices or their personal desires. No? I will only accept actual reason as my judge. To listen to me, that might also enrich and benefit you because, like any philosopher and artist I might add, I am untimely. Most people are prisoners of their time. and the whole thinking and being and judgment is ruled by this particular time. By this, I don't mean to say that such people can't be critical of their time. In fact, I would assume that anyone, to some degree at least, is critical of his time. There probably isn't a single person out there who is just happy and content with everything as it is, and who wouldn't want a single detail of this world changed. But that's not enough to make one untimely, because even the criticism against a time can still be rooted in that time. And that includes the seemingly radical criticism, which aims towards system change or the new human or whatever else you want to call it. Most of the time, the critics and the defenders of a time don't realize how they stem from the same root, and how even that criticism is still very much a plant of its own time. Now, the philosopher, to be sure, also is a child of his time. I'm not saying that he exists out there independently of everything else in sort of a closed off time bubble or something. But even while being a child of his time, the philosopher is not a prisoner of his time. He is able to stay above his time and to look beyond the horizon of his time. What often helps him in doing so is that he often cultivated himself through the help of another time. In my case, that would mostly, though not exclusively, be the age of Aufklärung, the 18th century. And this untimeliness of mine showed itself already even in this video. I earlier called myself wise, and wisdom is a word that has become very unfashionable, if it ever was fashionable to begin with. It's a word you don't hear spoken much nowadays. And that holds true not just for daily life, but also when studying philosophology, where you would probably expect wisdom to be a topic. I don't remember it being discussed much. And I don't remember the students or professors caring any more about being wise than the wider populace does. Nowadays we don't tend to call people wise. Even if we held somebody to be very smart, very insightful, even if we were a very big fan of that person, we would probably still hesitate to call him wise. Likewise, people don't strive to become wise themselves. It's usually not an ambition anyone has, even though wisdom should be the highest virtue. And lastly, if somebody dared to call himself wise, he would either be ridiculed in most cases, or people would get upset and angry with him and take him to be arrogant and deluded. And this last fact is quite interesting and quite telling if you think about it. Because let's assume for a moment that wisdom exists. I'm not even talking about myself here. You don't have to believe that I myself am wise. You just have to assume that someone, somewhere, is wise or was wise. Or let's not even go that far. Let's not say that wisdom exists, but let's assume that it could exist. That a human being could attain wisdom. Well, shouldn't such a wise person then be able to say that he is wise? Because he would know that he is wise, because self-awareness, self-understanding, that should be part of being wise. And if he knows that he is wise, why shouldn't he be able and allowed to also say it? So, when people dismiss someone for calling himself wise, not after having examined him and having found that he is indeed not wise, but if they dismiss him right away, without examination, that can only mean one thing. That can only mean that they believe wisdom is not a thing. Wisdom can't exist. A human being can't be wise. But even if that was true, how would they possibly know that? They couldn't know from experience, because from experience they could at most know that they have never met a wise person before, but that could never prove that it's impossible. Well, there is only one possible way. Those people first took a look at themselves and they realized, well, I'm not wise. And till this point, we can agree with them. I mean, they will know themselves best. If they say they aren't wise, they probably aren't wise. But then, they also say, I am the best. I am the most amazing person walking around in this world. So, therefore, since I am not wise, and since no one can possibly be better than me, no one can possibly have a deeper understanding than me, no one can possibly be more rational, more good than me, then no one can be wise. That is the reasoning they are doing. Probably not consciously, just unconsciously, but that by necessity must be their reasoning and their conclusion. And if you ask me, that's quite presumptuous and arrogant of them to just assume that no one could possibly be deeper and wiser than them. And this example goes to show how my convictions and my judgments differ from the usual ones of our age. How they are in fact not just different, but very often the polar opposite. That which others find to be simply natural, I judge to be despicable. And on the other hand, that which to others may be presumptuous and arrogant, to me is honorable and even a moral duty. Because to me, there is nothing that could possibly be more arrogant than to go out, to stand in front of the public and to say, I am not the voice of reason. I am just one of about 8 billion particular individuals. I don't believe to have the truth. Rather, I just have my particular, specific, individual opinion, just like these other 8 billion have. And my opinion is no better, no truer than any of theirs. And I don't have deeper understanding or deeper insight into anything than all those others. And still, I dare to walk out of my personal circle, like my circle of friends, where I may freely talk about my opinion and share their opinion. I still dare to walk out of my personal circle and to put myself out there and to expect the public, to expect those other 8 billion who all have their own opinions, who all are equally unqualified as I am, to listen to me, to take seriously what I have to say, to give any importance to what I have to say. That to me is the height of arrogance. And the opposite, saying, I only want to be the voice of reason, I only want to say what is true, not whatever is my opinion, that I believe to be very modest. And once again, that I believe to be a moral duty. This example may show you how much my concepts and my judgments differ from the usual. And therefore, I expect a lot of people won't simply disagree with me. I mean, that will happen anyway when you say anything. You don't have to be untimely to have people disagree with you, because the time, the current age itself breeds different opinions that are in disagreement with one another. And I would go so far as to say it's pretty much impossible to say anything without having at least someone somewhere disagree with you. I mean, even if you state that the world is a globe, you will still find some flat earthers who disagree with you. But I expect not simply disagreement. I expect not simply that people will find what I say to be wrong. Rather, I expect that a lot of people will find some things I will have to say to be very much paradoxical. That they will simply not understand the things I'm saying. Not because those things are too complicated, and not because those people are too stupid, but simply because these things will be too new, too different, too far removed from what is usually said. But I also do believe that if you really try, if you give it a chance, and if you give yourself a chance at that, you can understand what I have to say. I mean, I too understood it after all. And as I said before, I don't believe myself to be some higher being, to be simply born with more reason, with more rationality. I believe very much that anyone potentially can get to where I am. And I want to help people get there. Well, this untimeliness of mine might be a second reason to listen to me. Pretty much anyone else who currently speaks publicly is a timely person with timely things to say, even if they are right. So pretty much anyone else who speaks publicly is only saying things that 1,000 other people are probably saying too. And therefore, the question would always remain, why should you listen to this person in particular and not to one of the other 1,000? As I said before, maybe sometimes one person will be able to explain something a bit better or to give a better example for something. But in the end, they are only saying what others are saying too. So you might as well listen to those others. Well, what I am saying, whether you agree with it or not, will, at least in parts, be something that you probably won't hear anywhere. At least in the present. I will say some things that you would only hear or read if you looked into other ages. If you read great philosophers of the past, like Fichte or Nietzsche or Kant, which, to be clear, I am recommending that you do. I'm not saying you should only listen to me and not to anyone else. But if you want to find these things said anywhere in the present, you will probably have to look here. And if you too want to become untimely, if you want to rise beyond your time and leave your time behind yourself, if you want to learn to be truly and radically critical of your time, instead of just sticking to criticism of the time that itself is born of that time which it criticizes, then you might benefit from listening to me. A third reason why one should listen to me is my moral striving. Philosophy is often taken to be simply theoretical, to be just an intellectual endeavor. But that is wrong. Philosophy is first and foremost practical, meaning it is concerned with the way we act. That this isn't more known just goes to show how nothing is known at all about philosophy in this day and age. Because this is not just some opinion I hold. This is how it always has been. It has been like that in the time of the ancient philosophers like Socrates. But it also still has been like that in the time of the great newer philosophers like Kant, Fichte, or Nietzsche. They all valued action even above understanding and knowledge. They all were first and foremost concerned with the way we act and conduct ourselves, and not just with the right theory. The same is true for Aufklärung. Aufklärung, or once again, it's usually called enlightenment in English, Aufklärung too is taken to be a thing concerning the intellect mostly. People think they are aufklärt when they have no one else telling them what to think, what to believe in. Or they think they are aufklärt when they let go of this or that prejudice. But if you look back to the age of Aufklärung, if you look at any actual Aufklärer and what he actually said and what he actually cared about, I will refer to Kant here as one example, but there are also many, many others, then you would always find that they, first and foremost, considered Aufklärung to be the path to morality. And once again, that this isn't known goes to show that nothing at all is known about Aufklärung. This, once again, isn't simply an opinion. I already wrote about that and proved that in my bachelor thesis years ago. This is simply what the Aufklärers thought about what they were doing and what was important to them. Being a philosopher and an Aufklärer, I too am first and foremost concerned with morality. However, I have to make clear here that I mean this word not in the way it is currently used nowadays, but rather in an untimely way. Because, to be sure, just like wisdom, morality is a word that is not exactly fashionable. If we take a look at current debates, we find that there is one political side which doesn't just not care about morality, but which takes pride in immorality and which believes morality to be an insult. They call their enemies social justice warriors, for example. Or here in Germany, they call their enemies Gutmenschen, which literally means good human. Or they call their enemies Weltverbesserer, here in Germany, which means world betterer, one who wants to make the world better. And by using this sort of language, by using these words as insults, it is fair to assume that they think of themselves as social injustice warriors, as evil humans, as world worseners. But what's interesting is that the other side, even though it is accused of being moral, doesn't actually care about morality at all, and doesn't usually use this word, morality. Rather, what the other side cares about mostly are certain rules of politically correct conduct. Norms for correct, that is, unproblematic, untoxic behavior, but not morality. And I want to make it quite clear that as a deep thinker, I am not concerned with such superficial things as rules of proper conduct. Those people like to believe that if they are nice, if they are decent, if they are following those rules of conduct, that is enough to be good. And that therefore they don't need to be self-critical and to question themselves if they really are good already, and that they don't need to work on themselves. And that is typical for unaufklärdness, because as I said before, it is always based in laziness. Well, actual morality, in the untimely sense I understand the word, is less about making rules and demands for others and judging others for not meeting them, but rather it is a task for myself. I strive towards morality. I strive to work on myself and to cultivate myself. And I want to be very clear here that I don't claim to be done with this. I'm not saying I simply am moral. I am saying I strive towards being moral. And here I can add that unaufklärdness only knows being, while Aufklärung is much more focused on becoming, instead of claiming to just be, saying I am moral, I am aufklärt. No, I want to become, I strive. Here someone could now say, well, that's all fine and good, and maybe even noble of you that you strive towards morality, but how does that concern the public? How is that a reason to listen to you? Well, because it influences the way I think and the way I talk and the way I deal with my own convictions. I strive to always say the truth. That doesn't mean I will always say the truth, because I'm still human. I'm not above error. But it means that I will always be sincere. It is sad that I have to say this, that I have to emphasize this, because it should really go without saying, but unfortunately it doesn't, especially in our day and age. So I do want to stress and emphasize that I want to be sincere. I don't want to lie. I don't want to manipulate. I don't want to say something that I don't fully believe and am convinced by. Nor do I want to use arguments that I myself don't find convincing, just to lure people in and just to make people agree with me. Because I don't want people to agree with me, I want them to agree with truth. And I only want them to agree with me if I say the truth and if they actually understood that I am saying the truth. But I don't just want to be sincere, I want to be honest. which I take to be two different things. Because sincerity should be demanded from anyone, and it's really the least anyone can do to be sincere. But honesty is the quality especially of the scientist and of the philosopher. I don't just want to not lie, not say things that I know are wrong. I also don't want to say things that I may not know to be wrong, but that I also don't know to be right for sure. I want to only say things I am truly convinced by. I don't want to accidentally and mindlessly blabber out some stuff that I guess to be true, but that I simply haven't thought through. I don't want to mindlessly spread prejudices because I may have heard something, but I never checked it before passing it on to you. I want to only say things here that I have really thought through, that I really have thought critically about, that I have researched, that I have discussed with others and heard other perspectives on. I will surely still fail doing so at times, because once again, I am still just a human being. But I will try, and I will strive. And even if I won't always be correct in what I say, I will always try my best to be correct. And if I'm ever wrong, and I'm shown and convinced that I'm wrong, then I will openly admit it and correct myself. That won't hurt my self-image one bit. Quite the opposite. It would hurt my self-image, and I couldn't have regard for myself anymore if I still kept sticking to something after realizing it's wrong, simply because I'm afraid of admitting that I was wrong. So that is what I can promise. Always trying my best to be sincere, and even more to be honest. What also follows from this moral striving of mine is that I strive for, just like any philosopher I might add, not just me, for thoroughness. We may live in a day and age that idolizes superficiality and shallowness, but you shall not find that when reading my books. Rather, I want to always be thorough and in-depth. I want to not just say trivial things. I don't want to just repeat and spread banalities, even if they might be correct, but rather I want to go deeper. So, if that is something that interests you, then once again, I invite you to listen to me. My last point is directly connected to the previous one. Because if Aufklärung is indeed the path to morality, then it follows that Aufklärung is also the path to felicity. For the ancients, it was obvious that the virtuous person and the happy person are one and the same. And the various schools of philosophy of the classical period may have debated on what exactly is virtue and how exactly do we get there? What exactly is happiness? But they were in agreement that they are both connected. Nowadays, however, this is largely taken to be wrong. And people find it equally obvious that these ancients were naive. I have heard such statements a lot when studying philosophology. But forgive me if I prove untimely in this too. So if I think that we modern ones are naive in this, when we believe that it was possible for a good person to be unhappy and for an evil person to be happy. Now, I don't deny that outwardly the evil person can have certain success. He can have things. He can get rich. He can get powerful, and therefore he also can attain certain pleasures in life, without a doubt. But the question is if that would really make him happy. Because even so, even with all these possessions and all these pleasures, you might still have your fears. Maybe you have all the more fears. Maybe you fear losing what you have again, because you depend on it. Or you may have stressful days still. It may cost a lot of effort and a lot of stress, a lot of upsetting work to attain and to keep all of this. You may get angry at times because something doesn't go your way, and so on and so on. So, being rich, being powerful, being successful, having pleasures, doesn't necessarily save someone from all of these feelings, all of these emotions that people usually don't want. Now in this, most people would probably actually agree with me. However, they would, for the most part, also claim that this is necessary, that this can't be any other way, that these feelings are a constant part of life. These people believe that our life, in large parts, is not in our own hands. They believe that we depend on blind coincidence or on fate or on some divinity, whatever it may be, but some sort of higher power that we can't escape from. They believe, which is typical for unaufklärtness, they believe humans to be victims of outside forces, of circumstances. And therefore, they are convinced that it is necessary for our life to be a constant up and down. And that even when you are successful, when you have good things, when you have pleasures in your life, you just can't possibly escape from the fear, the stress, the anger, and so on, that are just part of daily life. Well, you can be convinced of this as much as you want. It can't be true conviction in the end. Because where would this conviction come from? How would you know for sure that true felicity in life is not possible? You can only know from personal experience. You can only know that maybe you don't have it. Maybe no one around you, no one you know of has it. But from that, it doesn't follow with necessity that no one can possibly have it. I, on the other hand, I am convinced that if you aufklär yourself, so if you attain rationality and thereby morality, then you will also attain felicity. And I can be convinced of this, unlike those who disagree with me. I can be convinced of this out of pure reason, because it can be proven a priori. I won't prove it here, because that would lead too far away and take up too much time, and also because it's not necessary that I prove it, because it has already been done. Anyone who cares to can read Fichte's Instruction to a Blessed Life. But it is proven that being rational leads to being happy. But I can also be convinced of this from experience. I can be convinced of this from my own experience, because I know how I live life, and I know of my own happiness and blessedness. But I can also be convinced of this from the experience of the people around me. Because I have witnessed again and again, and there are enough people who would give testimony for this, and I could bring in more people than I have if I wanted to, that in as much as people have listened to me and taken to heart what I had to tell them, they have grown more content with life, more happy with life, more in tune with their life. It should go without saying that people who might talk to me every week or even every day are likely to take with them more than someone who has only met me once and talked to me once in their life. But even out of those who have only met me once, there were quite a few who were grateful for that meeting and who took something away from it. But no matter whether someone listened to me a lot or just a little, what I can say is that without exception, every single person who listened to me, who truly listened to me, took something of value away from it. And never, not even once, has someone told me, well, I listened to you, I took seriously what you had to say, I applied it to my life, and it only made everything worse. Not even did someone tell me, well, it didn't make everything worse, but it didn't make stuff better either. Things just stayed the same. No. Whenever someone applied what I had to say, whenever someone truly listened to it, whenever someone truly took it to heart and started to truly live what I taught them, they benefited from it. And this benefit I can promise to everyone who wants to listen to me or who wants to read what I write and who is truly willing to give it a chance. Because this I want to clarify, and it is something that philosophers have known for a long time. You can find it in newer philosophers like Fichte or Nietzsche, but you can also find it in an ancient thinker like Seneca. Everyone who has something to give, and I do have something to give, needs someone who can take as well. It always needs two. Aufklärung means thinking for yourself, being free from someone else's leadership. It should be pretty obvious that you can't lead someone to be free of leadership. That would be self-contradictory. So that means that in the strictest sense, it is not possible to aufklär someone. You can only offer someone help and guidance and give pointers so that they can aufklär themselves. But you can't force someone. And I wouldn't do it even if I could. Helping and guiding in this process, that is something I can do and have done before. But nothing more can I do or will I even try to do. And that is why, while I invite anyone who wants to listen to me, I also want to tell some people that they probably should not listen to me. So if you are one of those who only seek historical knowledge, or rather awareness, not true knowledge, so who only seek to save facts in your memory, so that later you can say, well, I know, or rather I'm aware of what JonathanLöwer says. I know he says these and those things, he claims that and this. But if you don't want to connect this knowledge with yourself and with your life, if you don't want to make anything out of it, if you have no wish, no inner need to truly work on yourself and transform yourself, if you don't want this knowledge to actually touch yourself, then you might as well not listen at all and save some time. Also, if you are one of those who don't believe they have anything to learn still, one of those who believe themselves to be done and complete already, who believe to already be aufklärt. They are not aufklärt, they are ausklärt. In English, if you wanted to translate Aufklärung with enlightenment, even though I'm not happy with that translation, then it would probably be best to translate Ausklärung as entwilightment. So if you are one of those ausklärt or entwilighted people who already are educated, who already know everything, who take offense at the notion that they should still be taught anything by anyone, let alone someone like me, who is so arrogant as to call himself wise. If you are one of those, I have nothing to say to you. Because I have got nothing to say to those who don't realize their own arrogance while accusing others of arrogance. And if you are one of those who always look out for errors, and you will find such errors, because he who looks solely for errors will always find errors. If you come here and listen with an inner reservation, with putting up an inner barrier and armor, so that you can't be touched to begin with, if you belong to any of those groups, then I advise you to save your time and not even try to listen to me. I am, to make that clear, I am not sending such people away. I mean, it's not like I could. I have no influence over who reads my text or who listens to my lectures once I put them out there into the public. But even if I could, I would not send such people away. But I'm simply giving them advice and warning them that to them I have nothing to offer. They won't benefit or win anything by listening to me. Those, however, who come to me open and ready and willing to be touched and to truly listen, those I invite to do listen to me. And to those I promise that it will enrich them and that I will give them much of value for their lives. And I will do, from my side, whatever I can to reach anyone, to be as easy to understand and as clear as possible. And if ever I'm not, I will be happy to be told so that I can try to improve and to become even more clear. And I wish for people who, for their part, will do the same. So people who will try their very best to listen, to understand, to truly grasp what I have to say. People who understand that understanding takes work. It takes effort. It is an art. It is not something that can simply be done by passively letting something wash over you, but it can only be done through your own activity. And If we both sincerely strive, I, from my side, to be understandable, and you, from your side, to understand, then, I believe, we can meet in the middle. And then, not just you will walk away from this enriched, but I will be enriched as well. Already in religion, it is known that you can't force anyone to understand. The Bible says,
"If they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead."
and in one, I believe to be very important passage that hardly anyone seems to know, that I don't really find anyone is ever talking about. It says that Jesus could only do his miracles where people believed in him, and didn't do them where people didn't believe.
And he could there do no mighty work, save that he laid his hands upon a few sick folk, and healed them.
Likewise, in the Quran, we can read that, "And even if we opened for them a gate to heaven, through which they continued to ascend, still they would say, 'Our eyes have truly been dazzled. In fact, we must have been bewitched.'" And in another place, the Quran relates the story of Moses meeting the Pharaoh. "Pharaoh threatened, 'If you take any other god besides me, I will certainly have you imprisoned.' Moses responded, 'Even if I bring you a clear proof?' Pharaoh demanded, 'Bring it then, if what you say is true.' So he threw down his staff, and behold, it became a real snake. Then he drew his hand out of his collar, and it was shining white for all to see. Pharaoh said to his chiefs around him, 'He is indeed a skilled magician, who seeks to drive you from your land by his magic.'" Passages such as these show a deep insight into the little known and little understood fact that people don't come to believe in something because they witnessed a miracle that convinced them. Rather, it is the opposite. Those who don't believe will not see the miracle when it happens. And even if they do see it, they will write it off and they will deny that it is a miracle. Only those who already believe will be able to see a miracle when it happens. And therefore, I want to stress that I don't offer felicity to everyone. I do, however, offer and promise felicity to everyone who is willing to listen to me and to be touched by what I have to say. I can do miracles. I have done miracles before. I have raised people from the dead before. And to those who are willing to believe in me, I promise they will experience miracles.